everyone, and welcome to Karen and Company. Today I have a special treat for you. Today on my show is someone celebrating his 905th program, and he happens to be doing that on my program, Carl Pratt. I want you to welcome Carl. Carl, thank you for coming on to Karen and Company.
Well, I'm looking forward to visiting with you. You should be commended for what you do and the attention you bring to this channel and the variety of guests that you've had. I enjoy your efforts as well.
Thank you, Carl. But you are celebrating your 905th show. Give us the little background there on how you first started.
Well, I think my sports interest goes way back to when Plymouth was a small town. I think I grew up when there was 18 to 20,000 people in the town. Two media outlets, the Old Colony Memorial and WPLM. With the Old Colony Memorial, Walter Haskell covered everything. WPLM did the high school football and basketball games for Plymouth Carver Sports, and I just showed interest there. Walter took me under his wing. WPLM, I eventually joined Doug Edwards as the statistician for the high school games, and it just was a passion that evolves. There was no set game plan in place. It just evolved and continues to grow.
Well, I have a picture here, and I know it won't show on the camera. Maybe we can scan it in later. A very, very young Carl Pratt. How old were you in this picture, Carl?
8 years old, Stevens Field.
And you're sitting there with Lenny Vaz and all these great people from North Plymouth. And why don't you take this and explain a little bit of that picture? You're adorable.
Well, thanks. I just think as a youngster, I used to hang around Stevens Field and was the bat boy for this softball team. Bobby Gavoni's to the left of me. Lenny Vaz is there. Joe Freitas up in the back. Kenny Reed in the middle. Java Vaz up in the top right. Somebody still calls me Little Java to this day, and so forth. And that's really where my interest in sports began, as a bat boy at 8 years old.
Yes, and I understand you were befriended by Dick Silver and Roger, and helped you greatly. And I mean, you had a calling for this at a very young age.
Yeah, I think that I've been fortunate. I've had a lot of people, Dickie included, and Roger was a good friend around the baseball diamond, the softball diamond, and so forth. And somebody like Walter Haskell, Ray Burton was a great guiding light to me as a youngster. Dick Cash in Plymouth was like a second family to this day. We remain great friends, and I've been fortunate and blessed. While I had a nice home of my own, there were many other people that took me under their wing, and for that I'll be forever grateful.
Absolutely, you were blessed. You had the calling at a very young age. You gave me a story. You told a story earlier about your teacher saying that you talked a lot in class, third grade. Why don't you give a little bit of that story?
Well, some people might be embarrassed by it. I can look back on it now with a chuckle. And her name was Mrs. Gelletley from Mount Pleasant School, and they used to write comments after every quarter, and she'd tell my mother I was a pretty good student and this and that in the first quarter, but it's tough to keep Carl quiet. In the second quarter, she writes and says, you know, Carl seldom stops talking. His cursive writing needs to improve. And then the third quarter, she starts out in big letters, it is impossible to keep Carl quiet. So that was in the third grade. And then when you get to be a senior in high school, being kind of poor and wearing the same clothes year round and maybe high-tide pants and things like that, I wasn't going to get voted best dressed. I enjoyed sports but wasn't the best athlete, so I get voted most talkative. So in your life, now I'm able to take that ability or that characteristic and turn that into some form of money-making ability, but also taking that and using that as a great tool for the passion I have.
Yes, and which leads us to that you do help a lot of kids in the Plymouth area and surrounding areas. And you have a philosophy behind that. Today, parents have to help their children and to get into college and universities. Tell us how you do that, Carl, for them.
Well, in addition to covering the local games here in the Plymouth area, well, they also go to 13 towns. I do a lot of game films for other schools. St. George's out of Rhode Island, Milton Academy, St. Sebastian and Needham, Xaverian. But I make all these high school game films, but then there's always that need to have a video resume to go to college. And it's unfortunate for the kids and their parents, it's fortunate for me, I guess. But we have to sell our kids now. And unfortunately, there's such a battle to get the best athlete to wear the college colors, the college uniform. And I just take those tapes and break them up and put together all their highlights, make numerous copies, and they can send them out to various schools to actually tell the coaches what they have.
Well, I just saw you recently. I had gone down to the Plymouth South Elementary on Bourne Road, and there you were with the kids, and you were filming them. And you've been doing this how long, Carl?
First show was April 4th, 1989. I started it with Paul Coffin. He was with me for about the first 100 shows. And Paul's very active in Plymouth as a coach and teacher and so forth. And it takes a big commitment, as you know, with your own show. But it just evolved from there. You know, you just go from game to game, season to season. And the way seasons overlapped, there's no break. So it isn't like you're doing it for another season. It turns into another year.
And Carl, people think you do this full time.
Well, you know, it's kind of funny. I do it more full time than my full-time job. When people see me do a high school game or people see me do my sports show and I'm running around and all of a sudden they say, "You work there? You got a job?" I said, "Oh yeah, I got a real job." And I think the same night you saw me down in the South Plymouth area, some guy comes up to me, "Hey Carl, how's it going?" "Good, how are you?" He goes, "Are there 3 of you?" He goes, "I see you everywhere." So
That's true.
sure.
That's true. But you do put out a quality product, Carl. I've seen it. I watch you on our Channel 10 here in Plymouth and on PAC TV. Now, you just won an award on PAC TV, not only for your program, but for the type of person you are. And I want to say I fully agree with that because you are a stellar individual. And I'll say it myself. I thank you for everything you do. Now, along with this picture that we will show, there is something else. I mean, to see the gap in time, what is there, 30 years between the young boy and...
I don't know how much they can get of this and so forth, but, Ken is doing it behind the scenes. This is actually 30 years, let's see, now let me just turn this quickly for you. This goes back to 1992, but for all intents and purposes, 30 years from that youth softball picture, that's me interviewing Nolan Ryan at Fenway Park. And if anybody knows Nolan Ryan, he struck out more people than anybody in the history of baseball. And, just, I guess, with the passion continued. You go from Stevens Field to Fenway Park.
And I notice you have his rookie card there.
Sure.
That's going to be worth some money.
Oh, sure. But, when you get something like that in the complete package, it's only worth as much as it's worth to the holder.
Oh, of course. And you've had such great experiences. What is your background in education, Carl?
Well, I went to Plymouth Carver, graduated in 1973, and then I went on to Bristol Community College down in Fall River and got a 2-year degree in journalism and used that. I used to write sports for the Brockton Enterprise, the Old Colony Memorial. I write for the Patriot Ledger now, and the beauty is they appreciate what I do. In any high school game that I'm covering, if they need coverage, they let me do it. So you kind of double dip a little bit. And,
That's right.
while you're at the Plymouth Carver, I should say the Plymouth North-South football game on Thanksgiving Day, you're also writing it for the paper.
Sure. God, what a wonderful life you have. Tell me some of the so-called celebrities, and they are very to be celebrated. Give me their names.
Well, there's a long list of them, and over the years, I remember they were honoring Bill Russell a few years ago at the Fleet Center, and I knew that Tom Brokaw was going to be there. And, that's somebody that's so worldly with his NBC Nightly News. Now he's retired, of course, and so forth. But these are people bigger than life, and I had a chance to spend some time with him. Tom Brady, we know how popular Tom Brady's become these days. Caught him at Fenway Park after his rookie season, and he's out there taking batting practice. Kurt Gowdy, somebody I grew up idolizing. Dick Enberg, and Dick Enberg's an interesting story. I left a message for him one Friday night. I knew he was coming in to do the Patriots game, and the announcers spend their time in a hotel in Providence. Left a message. He called me back like it was one of my best friends and said, when do you want to do the interview? I said, anytime between now and kickoff on Sunday. He says, come on down to the hotel on Saturday. And we spent an hour in the CBS Sports boardroom. So that was kind of neat. But there's a lot of people over the years, and it's just, I'm just living a dream. If I see somebody out there I want to interview, there's only one left. I would love to interview Walter Cronkite, but that's a tough one.
Yeah, it sure is. Maybe if you go down to Newport, you can find him on his boat.
Yeah, there you go.
But you really pay attention. You go after these celebrities. And you're very respectful, of course. Sometimes you have to wait a long time before they appear, and they're always very willing to speak with you.
Yeah, and you mentioned that. Reggie Jackson is one. I went to the Red Sox Yankees a couple of years ago and doing some interviews, and I looked on the side, and of course he's in street clothes, and I said to the guy with me filming, I said, that's Reggie Jackson. I said, well, I'm going to try to get him. Oh, you'll never get him. I went up to him, said, you got a few minutes? And yeah, when I'm done what I'm doing, yeah. I stood side by side like for 40 minutes. It seemed like 4 days, but people like that don't come into town that often. Right. They're not in Fenway Park for every game. So they're worth getting because they offer so much and what they mean to their sport. I mean, I grew up watching Reggie Jackson hitting 3 home runs in 1 World Series game and over 500 career home runs as a youngster, watching Reggie Jackson fight in the dugout with Billy Martin. And I'm thinking, holy smokes. And, then when you spend time with him, and it really was a relaxing interview.
Well, I've enjoyed them because I do watch you. Now, you have, your program is called the Video Sports Page, and you started when?
April 4th, 1989.
Well, I think you started long before that, maybe in 3rd grade.
Yeah, there you go. Sure. Well, I can remember going down to the Boys Club one day, and Ray Burton was working down there, and Ray says, hey, you want to make a couple of dollars? You grow up poor, a couple of dollars seem like 20. Yeah, what's that? He says, call in the high school games to the Brockton Enterprise. I said, what do you mean? And call them into the Boston Globe. They want scores, and they pay you $1 or $2. So I started going to the high school games. The baseball game was over. You called the Boston Globe. They gave you a code, and you'd call in, and because they wanted to make sure the score was right.
Sure.
And, not just anybody calling in, and Plymouth always listed as a winner. So you just call in and say, this is so-and-so. Yep. Okay, Plymouth 6, Bridgewater Raynham 5. Okay, thank you. You'd call in the tennis score. You'd call in the track score. And then it evolved from there. And Walter Haskell, as I mentioned, who the old-timers in Plymouth will remember, wrote all the sports. And Walter used to take me under his wing and go to all the high school games with him and sit in the car with him.
Yeah, and didn't you wait for him 5:30 in the morning?
The year before hockey was taken over as a high school sport, they played in a club league. John Hernowitz was the coach, and they played up in Brockton. And I used to go to the games with Walter. And if anybody knows where Fast Eddie's Barbershop is, and right across is the green, I used to have to meet Walter on the green at like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning in the winter. Freezing cold. It's pitch dark. I'm scared as heck standing out there in the dark. But just to be able to go to that game, and the game would last 6 to maybe 7:30 in the morning, you'd be back home and people would still be in bed in the house in the morning, and you've already gone to a hockey game.
You know what I think it'd be great? If you got all the people together, especially in this photo, and had a time, a little get-together and at a little restaurant and have people come in, and I think that'd be great. I know Dick Silver and Roger speak of it fondly.
Oh yeah, I mean, these are people, but that's when Plymouth was what it was. There's a lot of people that have come to this town, and it's gotten so big and so forth. That familiarity, that neighborhood feeling, I'm not so sure is still there.
I know. It's changed. And sometimes it has to, but we have our memories. I've been here 35 years myself, so I understand.
You know the growth.
I know the growth. But, so tell me, what is your favorite thing? And I bet you can't separate it.
No, it's hard. It's hard to separate. I mean, it's fun when I know somebody's going to be at Fenway Park, and I get it and I nail the interview and I get to get that person and I walk out. They like the Tom Brokaw thing. I told the guy that was filming for me, Gary Smith, I said, I don't care who I'm interviewing. When you see Tom Brokaw come in, nab him for me, or not nab him, but let me know. And sure and heck, he kind of gave me a little signal. We cut off the one interview and went over there. But then when you're doing the little kids, whether it's the Vikings football show that we show, of course, for a couple of months in the fall, you go out and get some kid that, if I put that kid on TV making a basket or just skating or just playing baseball and he knows he was on TV and he sees me and he says, hey, you had me on TV, that's important. That kid may never be on TV doing nothing. He may never play sports after Little League or youth football and so forth. And that makes it worth it too. You know you're making a difference.
How can people contact you, Carl? I know we're going to put it up on the screen. Your website, you have a website. You also have a email, of course, and tell people exactly what you do. You tape them. You tape the kids, and they have a portfolio.
Sure. Although the youngsters, you're just going out getting highlights to add to the show. High school things are different. If you wanted me to come to a game and film the game and focus on your child, to put pieces together. I had a kid from the varsity basketball team this year. I grew up knowing the family. And the father said, geez, do you do that? Do you put that stuff together? Sure. Saw him earlier this week at a baseball practice. Said, how'd that resume work out? Oh, it was great. The coaches loved it. We showed everything. Not patting myself on the back, but
No.
it's an avenue. It's a tool.
It's a
I mean,
tool.
I'm providing a service. I'm not out there gratis and saying, oh, pat me on the back. But it's a necessary tool, and it's something that I enjoy. So you get a little better product sometimes if somebody's doing something that they enjoy, and you in turn can benefit from it.
Yes, I liked what you said the other night when you you were given your Packy Award. You said, to make a difference in someone's life is so important to you. And that was, there is the talent, and you are the tool to show them. And I think it's wonderful.
Well, you know, it's funny when parents buy a DVD from me of a youth football game or a basketball game or a cheerleading competition. I mean, make no mistake, as much as it's a passion, I've been able to generate some revenue from it, but that's not the ultimate. I mean,
No.
if it was, if people understood, you go to a high school game, you're there an hour and a half before the game, it's about a 4 or 5 hour commitment that night. Then it's 5 hours to edit it to get it on TV. You add up the dollars.
Oh,
You're
I
not
know.
knocking the walls down. You're just kind of saying it.
Yeah.
But back to what you said in terms of making a difference, it's if a kid only has himself on tape playing. I run into people now that are older adults. I was filming a game at St. Sebastian High School in Needham last year, a football game. And it's cold, it's the end of the season. The guy's got a hat on, he's got a full beard and sunglasses, and I go up there, hey Carl, how's it going? And I'm thinking, who the heck's this guy? He's filming for the other team. It's a former Plymouth football player, captain. Once he said his name I knew, but his uncle's into video, and he was filming the game for him, and he said, oh, I still got tapes home that you did of me, and these little kids that play youth football, the parent will buy the tape. I'll say, do they watch that? Are you kidding me? That kid's watched that thing about 55 times. That's great. That's
and
great.
showed his friends, I'm sure, or her friends.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yes. Now, I understand you were inducted into the Plymouth High School Hall of Fame. Now, Carl, I don't want to embarrass you or anything. What happened?
Well,
the little aside.
Yeah, the side story. Well,
Yeah.
it's funny, when I got the call from Dick Silva, I played 4 years of baseball in high school, a couple of years of football, got beat up being small and so forth, and, I found out, I knew then I better be on the writing in the newspaper, sitting behind the microphone. And it was funny, I teased Dick Silva, I said, wait a minute, the best memory I have of high school sports, whether it's freshman or varsity, was a game at Silver Lake when I couldn't make it from the field all the way to the bathroom and unfortunately wet my pants. And I said, Dick, I'm getting put in the Hall of Fame for peeing my pants. And he started laughing. But the reality of the whole thing is, if you're a good high school athlete for 2 or 3 years, even a great one, you'll get put in the Hall of Fame. If you do what I do for 2 or 3 years and stop, you don't get put in the Hall of Fame. People just say, yeah, Carl did that for a couple of years. that is like the ultimate for me. I mean, for what I do, there wasn't or couldn't be a bigger honor. And I was so moved when they said, we recognize what you do for these high school kids, for the town. I mean, think about it. If you get put in the Hall of Fame, you'll be in there forever. And you're part of history in this town. And it was pretty cool.
Right. Wouldn't it be wonderful when Plymouth North gets its new school?
Yeah, there you go.
But and you do the basketball, you do it all, the hockey, you're there for all of it.
Yeah, it started out in 1988. I went to Adelphia and said, can I buy some airtime to put games on?
Yeah, tell me,
Yeah.
how does that work, Carl?
Well, you go there and you just say you want to buy airtime. And you could do it, I can do it. You see the car dealerships on there on the weekend, they pay for it. I just do it, and my subject is sports, high school sports. And
Is it very cost prohibitive? I mean, I'm not asking you how
I mean,
but
you can make some money at it, and that's not shying away from it. But I wish it was cheaper. They tell you it's 3 cents a subscriber, okay, per hour. You think, oh, that's great. Well, my games go to 13 towns. Plymouth, Kingston, Carver, Duxbury, Marshfield, Halifax, Plimpton, Pembroke, Rockland, Abington, Bourne, Sandwich, and Falmouth.
Wow.
Now, nothing against a lot of those towns, but my focus schools are Plymouth North, Plymouth South, Silver Lake, Carver, Duxbury, Marshfield. People in Sandwich don't care about a Marshfield game, more or less. I mean, they may watch it for a little bit. So if you get out there and hustle, you can do it. I'm fortunate. I've been selling advertising for this since I started, and I have people that believe in me. Now, maybe because I go up to sell the advertising, they feel the enthusiasm, and I can. I mean, it's very attractive for an advertiser to participate in those games.
Well, you're credible, Carl. See, that's the key to it all. If you're credible, they will back you.
Well, you talk about somebody backing me. He doesn't own the business anymore, but many years ago, Ken Fosdick owned Shiatown Ford.
Yes.
And ran that business. And he was one of the ones that remembered when I used to broadcast the sports for WPLM. And when I went out on my own and was looking for advertising, I went to Ken, and he supported me. Kevin Conway at B&B Auto Body supports me.
Oh, sure.
Richard Shelley from Shelley and Trent. Those are staples that say, hey, I'll help you along. Now, 20 years later, I'm doing the games, and those people helped me get started and believed in me in the beginning.
Yeah.
And you need those. You need those people in that foundation early on for somebody to support you.
Yes.
I mean, you're coming out of nowhere, I'm going to put high school games on the table. I will tell you this much, without getting into dollars, I never made any more money in 20 years doing those games than I did the first year, because there was no such thing as local advertising. There was no benchmark. So I come in and I start telling an advertiser, it's going to be $100 a game. They said, okay, I'll do this. 10-game season. I made a lot of money that first year. Well, the next year I go back to the advertiser and say, why should I pay that with you? I can be on Nesson or the USA Network for $8 a spot. Of course, they're getting 300 or 400 spots in a month. But that was when it came in. They came into being as I did. So, but there was no benchmark originally. So then I went back and I'm thinking, wow, they want to cut me in half, because we didn't know where to begin.
Right.
We didn't know what it would cost.
Yes. Well, I see you continuing on. Do you have anything on the horizon, something special you would like to do?
No, I think you always want to interview somebody that's interesting, that's coming to town. If you're watching a game or something, you see somebody's there, you say, oh, I wish I could interview that person. You try to put yourself in that position. You got to do your homework, read the papers, keep your eye on the TV. Probably the only one I've never interviewed that I'd like to interview is Walter Cronkite.
Oh, sure.
But I don't like the water. He does. So that might keep our distance.
Well, with this new movie studio, hopefully, that's going to come in, there could be a vehicle for you in that, too.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. We hear a lot of talk about that.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll do a life story of a poor kid from Plymouth that lived a dream.
Now, that's a worthy...
Well, you know what? That's a side that a lot of people don't know, but I'm so grateful to so many people that recognized me and swept me off my feet. Not that I was dragging in the alleyways, don't take it the
No,
wrong
no,
way.
no.
But people that let me become part of their life. Somebody like Doug Edwards, who was my high school freshman football coach, science teacher in school. He used to broadcast all the high school games. And he let me do the statistics one time at halftime on the radio when they did the Plymouth Carver games. And I thought, wow, this is great. And then it went on and on from there. But if he didn't give me the start and let me broadcast on the radio, maybe I wouldn't have done it. If Walter Haskell didn't say, go cover this high school game, maybe I wouldn't have done it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that
Pushed
they
you
kind
along,
of left the door open.
guided
and said,
you.
yeah.
Yep, which is wonderful. Now you've done golf. You've broadcast with golf too, haven't you?
Yeah, but very little. That's a tricky, and you know, golf you need a lot of cameras and so forth. But I'll go to golf tournaments and try to get people that, like, I'll go there, like down to Willow Bend and the Cape. I'll go down there during a golf tournament and then set up on a certain hole, and they'll come through. And then I'll just say, hey, can I get you for a couple of minutes? And I've got some pretty interesting people there, too. A week after the movie Shaft came out several years ago, I'm interviewing Samuel L. Jackson.
Wow.
And it was kind of cool because that guy's bigger than life. And he's got 6 state troopers around him, you know, so the fans don't get all over him. And he goes up to hit, and when he's done, I whispered to him, hey, Samuel, can I talk to you for a couple of minutes? Oh, sure. He starts walking towards me, and the state police come over, and like they're going to guard us. And, you know, next thing you know, he's pushing them away. And just to spend a couple of, I mean, these are people bigger than life, if you think about it, in movies and so forth. I mean, Bobby Orr, who's such a fixture, just celebrated his 60th birthday back on the 21st of May. And you're growing up watching Bobby Orr, and I'm interviewing him down there, and I'm thinking, wow.
Yes, and not only Bobby Orr, Havlicek.
Yeah, John Havlicek, there's my idol. I mean, I think about, if I went to my grave, I'm too early to die, but if I
Absolutely.
But if I went tomorrow, I'd probably live this dream that I wanted. These people that I wanted to interview, that I wanted to do it. It's kind of...
Well, you know what, Carl? You're passing your dream on. You're spurring children on. You're helping parents. You've helped this community greatly. And I know you're very shy when it comes to being given accolades, but I'm going to tell you straight out, Carl, thank you.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. And, you know, if you can do something you enjoy and you're making a little bit of a difference, then, you know, it's all worth it. And, you know, for me, if people see me at the field or at some game or some venue, all they got to know is I'm just having fun.
And you do a great job, Carl. Thank you so much for coming on Karen and Company. And thank you to my viewers for tuning in. I will see you next week. We have a bunch of new shows coming up. Thank you. Good night.